The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, I was in your homeland last week.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what Malmesbury?
Well, no, your original homeland of your father's.
The land of God.
Well, I was in... now, I can't ever get the complete pronunciation correct, but it ends with Festiniog, which is where they have that gorgeous railway that goes right up into the mountains. But also,
Festiniog.
oh, it's beautiful, and also it is a huge slate mining area, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And so I went down into one of the slate mines, 500 feet down into, it's called the Deep Mine Experience or whatever. I went down 500 feet, and actually miners went down a lot further than that to find out what it was all about. My God, I had no idea mining was like that.
Yeah, you should. Well, at some point in your life, you should go down Big Pit as well.
What's Big Pit?
Big Pit is
Well, it's obviously a pit that's big.
the old coal mine, and that's still open.
Where's that?
That's an experience.
Where is that then?
I think that's at Blenavon.
Right.
That you go down in one of those metal cages and it rattles and rolls, and they show you where all the little ponies slept and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't realise that a lot of the time the men worked in the dark.
Yeah, because of their eyes.
Yeah, but their eyes got accustomed to having like one or two candles in a cavern area, and they didn't need anything else.
No,
and
they used to take canaries down. Oh, well, probably not in the slate mine, but in the coal mine they would take canaries down.
Well, yeah, because it was a lot more unstable, wasn't it, with the gases?
The gases, yeah. So if the canary died, they knew they were screwed.
Right. Well, it's not a way to find out, but to get slate, they would essentially have to blow the slate out. I mean, that, which is a bit of an occupation of itself underground. So they're using explosives. And one guy's job all day long, he would, for 4 hours, with a metal, some sort of long shaft, he would drill this hole for 4 hours. Then when it got to a certain point in the shaft, then he would turn it round and drill again for another 8 hours. That was his day. Suspended in the air by a chain, of all things, in the dark.
And young'uns today complain.
About what, Kev? Probably about that they can't get enough bandwidth for a fortnight or something, don't they?
The FujiCast.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
The 4G's gone down.
4G's gone down. I know. The only disappointment I had is I did that mine shaft tour on our holiday on my own, and they all went off to the beach with their friends for the day. And I thought, actually, I should have dragged the kids down that mine, because never again could they ever say, "Can I have a new Xbox, Dad?" And say, "Look what they used to do years ago."
Yeah, they'd have loved that.
Oh, God. No, I don't. Yeah, I think they prefer the ice cream. But welcome to the FujiCast. You and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail through, click at fujicast.co.uk. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, don't worry. It's a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. Today we've got, it's another one of our kind of our best of the guests. Although really I feel a bit guilty saying best, because everybody's best really, aren't they, Kev? We've just drawn out a few of our highlights and friends of the show, and this is the one where you went to go and meet Robin Ravilious.
What a day that was.
It was.
What a take.
Well, I haven't left that part on, but there was about a minute where you were trying to unwrap this cake that Robin had brought through for you. I don't think you ever got in, did you?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, dear. So, Robin Ravilious today. And it's a bit of a strange show today, because we are ahead of a big event. So, we're recording on the Friday. It's going out on the Monday. But tomorrow, I don't mind. Usually, we try and sort of cover this up a bit, but I don't mind today, Kev, because it's a big event tomorrow in your life.
Well, yeah, it's the thing.
What do you mean, the thing?
The thing. It's the thing that we're doing, the family celebration thing.
Your wedding, Kev. It's not just a thing, Kev.
Yeah, there's that. There's an element of it. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. So Gemma is being, the poor priest, Gemma is being baptized, First Holy Communion, confirmation, and we're having a Catholic wedding. And the priest said to me, he said, "You know what, Kev, I think this might be a world record for a priest in one service."
You get your money's worth, Mullins, don't you? How much is this going to cost me? Can we chuck in a few other things as well?
Yeah, I was thinking that, but what can we do? Let's get a few other things going on.
Yeah, and then the party, the big party,
the big party.
So, how many people are going? Can you say, or is it like the Beckhams do's that it's all really, really private?
Well, it is our kind of close friends and family. I mean, we did have around 90 people, but of course, being the middle of August, quite a lot of them are on holiday and various things like that. So, be somewhere between the 4 of us and 90 people.
Oh, right.
Somewhere in between that.
Okay.
Probably around 60, I would imagine.
So absolutely no idea then.
Not really. It's very laid back. It's laid back for me, less so for Gemma, I have to say.
You've bought half of Wiltshire's available alcohol, though. I mean, if only 4 people are there, that's going to be one hell of a wedding hangover, isn't it? Whoa.
Yeah.
Oof. Ooh. Well, funnily enough, the first question is to do with your wedding. So it's from Peter Robinson, Berry. Hi, Neale, Kev. This one is definitely a question for Kevin. By the time you get around to reading the question, you may have had your wedding many months ago. I don't think that Peter believes we get to the questions very quickly. Not many of us photographers get the opportunity to choose our wedding photographer all over again. Well, not getting married to the same partner at any rate. So how did you choose your wedding photographer, and perhaps you'll share who got the job? What was the defining decision, and did Gemma get a vote too? All the best to you both. Happy wedding bells from Peter.
Well, yeah, that's a good question, actually. So the way it manifested, so I had a list of people that I wanted to come as guests. You and Sam and the kids being one. Yeah. Most of which couldn't make it, obviously, because you were working, and so were the others, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Anna's come in, bless her, and but she would have been a guest also. So she has come in. She is going to take some pictures, but I'm insisting that she mostly enjoys herself, because remember, this is, I'm nearly 50. It's my birthday last week. I'm nearly 500 years old now. It's I can only breathe in for so long, so it's certainly the most. I know that this might go in one ear and out the other for a very lot of people, which is absolutely fine. But the most important thing for me is the religious element to it. So we'll have that captured, and then hopefully Anna will. She's I spoke to her. She's just gonna bring her X100s, and she's gonna have fun and enjoy herself. Most importantly. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it manifested itself. I did think about having, getting a full-on photographer for the day, but most of them are not available. Were not available, which absolutely is fine, makes sense. And then I thought, you know what? It's not going to be like that. What will happen is, of course, it's already happened in real time. So I'm just presuming what will have happened is, we'll all go back. We've got it's like a village hall basically. It's Martin Parr territory. This, and we'll smash our way through the cake and alcohol, and then I would imagine it'll be all back to our back garden for a jamboree in the evening. So it's all very, very relaxed. But yes, and Gemma did indeed have a say in all of it. In fact, she's done all of it. I've done really nothing.
You know that bit in a wedding where people say, it's the groom, isn't it, that says, I love weddings because they seem to organise themselves, as kind of a jibe within his speech. Is it true of yours?
Yeah, kind of. Bless her. I mean, in fairness, I've kind of been busy working and stuff, so she has done the vast majority of stuff. However, what I will have to say is that it kind of got to Wednesday morning, the 3 days before, and we kind of woke up in the morning and went, I suppose we better organise all this stuff then.
If you, obviously Anna's going to do an amazing job for you, but if Anna was there purely as the guest, now tell us but the guest, and you could choose, and so you might be going down Martin Parr territory here, but I'm going to say steer clear of Martin, only because otherwise it's going to be too obvious as an answer on what you said a moment ago. If you could pick anybody, Kev, to photograph your wedding, still alive rather than a dead or alive question, who in the photographic world right now would you say come across and have a pop at Mullins' big day out?
That's really tough because there's loads of people. I'd love Louis Garvan to come over from Mexico. Yeah. I'd love Parker Fister from the States. All that kind of stuff. I mean, if we're going really, really exotic, totally out of the realms of reality, somebody like Elliot Erwitt would be amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the more realistic types, wedding photographers, and mind you, Parker doesn't do weddings any longer. But yeah, somebody like Louis, that'd be amazing.
But Louis Garvan will be setting up wonderful still life displays, wouldn't he? Stop the wedding, I'm doing a still life.
Bring me an orange.
That's it, yeah.
No, he shoots weddings. He shoots amazing documentary weddings as well. Yeah. Or he certainly used to.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that all of those are kind of pipe dream stuff. But no, I'm really excited, and Anna will take some pictures during the ceremony, and then hopefully she will then help herself to a couple of bottles of fizzy wine.
Well, she need to. If there's only the 4 of you plus Anna, it's going to be 5 of you to get through about £1,000 worth of booze.
I tell you what, though, it has been a very expensive experience. This, I have to say.
I bet.
I did not quite realise this. But yeah, there's a lot of spondoolies going out. I mean, I was in the pub last night with the boys, and Gemma was over the hall.
So you in the pub?
Mowing the lawn.
Kev, you're supposed to be doing your abstinence.
That didn't work.
Did it not?
I tried.
All right.
And then I just thought, actually, you know what? I'm just a little bit round. I'm just gonna. That's it. I've been practicing my breathing in and standing at a certain angle. I'm just gonna be a bit round.
That's t-shirt worthy. I'm just a little bit round.
Just a little bit round.
Just a little bit round. Right, your question.
Right, first of all, before we do the questions, I'm going to read out our new set of patrons, because we've got a handful of them. So
good.
Thank you so much, everybody who does support us on the FujiCast patron system. It's very kind of you, and your reward will be forthcoming in time at some point. But our reward is every month, which is brilliant. So we've got Charles Thurmond, Jeremiah Trulio.
Yeah.
Now this is a toughie. Asgeir Ma Olafsson. I think I did that. Good.
Yeah, not bad.
Asgeir Ma Olafsson.
Yeah.
Reese Robinson, Charles Origa, Michael Gilman, and Adam Crook. Thank you so much, people, for helping us and supporting us.
Thank you very much.
Right, first question from the Facebook group, and as always, I will start with the most recent one, which often when we do this, the most recent one's like posted an hour ago, but the last one so far was 3 days ago.
Well, it is summer, Kev, and questions are a little bit harder to fish for in the summer.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay,
should do what they do on phone-in shows, where at certain times of the year you can hear it rather, even on the big stations like LBC in this country anyway, where you can tell that it's a quiet day, and they say, if you call now, you're bound to get through. You should do that with the questions, really. If you send one now, it's bound to be read.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so Paul Szilard. Sure, I never get this.
Szilard.
Right.
It's the S and the Z together, Kev.
Yeah.
It's the silent letters that you love.
Silent letters. Ugh, what a waste. Okay, so here's a very good question, actually. Why is virtually every Fujifilm X camera have a different rear button layout? This is driving me nuts when switching between bodies. I would like Fujifilm to standardize on where to put the Q button and play, delete, menu, and back buttons, please.
Right.
There we go.
I don't know. I mean, every time you bring a model out, people look at it and think, it's the same with cars, isn't it? Well, we could just put that there. Maybe that's better there. I mean, you never leave things the same, do you? That's not how progress occurs. And if you leave everything the same, then you never get to find out if something actually works better in a different place. I quite like the idea that the Q button was less easy to press as further incarnations happened, for example. That's progress.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that going on, definitely. So remember the X series of cameras is still a very new series in real terms, in terms of camera lifespans. So there is a certain case of trying to get it right. However, I think the main thing is marketing. If your cameras all look the same, then people will not necessarily think, oh, well, that's new.
Why do I need that? I don't need that one.
Yeah, and things like some of the cameras, it makes sense to have less buttons and different places and things like that, because they're aimed at different people. Yeah. The vast majority of Fujifilm cameras, I would imagine, go to single camera owner people. So like certainly your XE camera range, your X100s, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a marketing element going on with that. But what I have to say is that they do try and refine things, so each one should be a little bit better than the previous one. That's the whole point of it. It's not just a case of changing things around because they want it to look different. They do, as an ambassador, we do often get questionnaires come through. We had a few the other day, in fact, about configurations and all that kind of stuff. So they definitely have to take that kind of stuff on board. I kind of agree with the point. I do kind of agree with the point, but I've never, even when I shot Canon, and well, that's the only other system I really shot I had 3 different Canon bodies. They were all different. All the buttons were in different places and dials and things like that. And that was the EOS system, which had been around for decades and decades. So I just don't think that, every camera will every brand is not going to have a uniform system continuously. They might for a period of time.
I've never thought they've dramatically shifted around, Kev. It's what's the most dramatic? I can't think of a really dramatic change from one body to another where you thought, whoa, that's appeared on the back side of the camera instead of the front side.
There hasn't been anything like that, but there has been some, like delete buttons moved and various things like that, which has caused issues sometimes. The Q button has moved around all over the place. But now, of course, with the modern cameras, the more recent set of cameras, everything's customizable. You can function button everything, so it's less of an issue. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Paul in that it would be a lot easier if all the buttons were the same. However, what happens if those buttons are not in the place that you want them to be, but they are in the place that other people want them to be? There's all kinds of issues going on there.
Here's a tricky one from Morris Webster. Morning, gents. A short email with a quick question and a slightly longer backstory for you both. Do you bother responding to the haters and trolls who feel the need to disparage your writing, your podcast, your videos, your photography, or just smile and move on? With you both having significantly larger audiences than I do, well, Kev, really. Mine's still modest, really. I suspect you've experienced this at some point. By way of background, I recently decided to add a blog section to my website and wrote my first article outlining why I decided to purchase a particular camera. I think it might be worth sharing you did share the article with us so we can have a look at it. We should probably share that on the website as well, shouldn't we, Kev, so you get an idea. I sent it to Petapixel, who subsequently added it to their site. Whilst the number of views massaged my ego, the comments section soon attracted a good deal of negativity, and I also received emails via my website along the same lines. What amused and bemused me in equal measure was the overriding feeling that many had decided to vent their vitriol from the title alone. Additionally, I confess to being entertained by the fact that those who clearly disliked the manufacturer, the article mentioned, rather than not read it and move on, they took the time to read, partially, I suspect, the article, and then waste even more time drafting a comment or email. As my late Yorkshire grandfather used to say, there's nowt queer as folk. That was my best impression of a late Yorkshire grandfather, by the way. What do you think, Kev? He says his initial reaction was to push back. Also, as always, thanks for the great entertainment. Delighted to hear that you're both back behind the camera at weddings. Well, so are we. Yeah, I mean, you've had more run-ins than I have, because you do have far greater following on I know you haven't done a lot or anything really on there of late on YouTube, but YouTube can be one of the most disparaging places, kind of sort of full of disparaging comments at least.
Yeah, so I did look at the Petapixel article.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, some of the comments were brutal and unpleasant and definitely unwarranted.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is if you send anything to Petapixel, you're going to get that. That's the Petapixel way. They seem to purposefully put posts up that are going to stir the hornet's nest a little bit.
Do you think so?
Yeah, definitely. Petapixel. It's right. I like Petapixel. It's don't get me wrong, they share some great stuff, but it's their business model is based on clicks, and so the more stuff that they can get that gets eyes on pages, they're gonna do better from it. So yeah, just be careful with where you do kind of send your stuff in that regards, and if you do send it to places like that, then be prepared. Go in with your with your hard hat on, because you will get those keyboard warriors. In the early days when I used to get stuff like that,
you used to get quite you were quite upset about it, I remember.
I was initially, but now I don't give don't give a damn any longer. The thing is, what I worked out a very long time ago is most of them are just jealous. That's it. The article that he shared was about his experience with the monochrome Leica.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And most of those people are probably, without even looking at the pictures or reading the article, just thinking, I wish I could afford one of them. I can't afford it. It's good thinking about your slate mine blokey. 8 hours in a slate mine, and these days people take to the keyboard, and just because they can't afford something, they just decide to attack people who can afford things. Not everybody, of course. I looked through all the comments, and there were some of the comments were nice and supportive and sensible.
You tend to only concentrate on the ones that are not so nice. That's sort of human nature, isn't it? You think, you've got 100 that are good and one that's bad, and it'll be the one that's bad that accompanies you to bed that night.
Yeah, of course. It is. You are. If you do read them, you're going to be. It's going to leave you in a pretty poor place sometimes. I remember when I took that picture at the Tokyo Tower and it won landscape photography bizarrely. Yeah. And it was picked up by the Daily Mail and they printed it and they stuck it on their website. And the comments on there were absolutely dreadful, like really, really, really dreadful.
Horrible.
And that must have been 8 or 9 years ago now.
That was nearer the start of your career, really, wasn't it? Yeah. So at that stage, it was not very welcome. It was great publicity in that article, but
I stopped reading the comments.
Did you?
That's what I did, and I still don't. That article still gets sent to me every now and again. It's still up there somewhere, and I just don't read the comments. And I occasionally on YouTube when people say it doesn't seem to happen so often these days. I think YouTube have managed to put something in place that seems to filter out the most derogatory stuff, or perhaps people who over the last few years have been reporting serial haters, if you like, and so their accounts are getting disbanded or something. I don't know, but it happens less.
Usually, if you follow them back, the account that they come from has no videos posted.
Oh yeah, it's all anonymous.
It's really there because they just want to say horrible things to people. So I don't take those people very seriously at all.
No, absolutely. I went through a period of just replying to people, but sensibly, and just saying, oh well, I take your point, and show me some of your pictures, and we can have a conversation. But of course there's no pictures. There was one guy who he had to go at my teeth.
Oh yeah. And, what's that got to do with photography?
You
should see them now, Kev. They are sparkly. Look at you. You're the dentist's dream.
It was brilliant because Gemma replied, or Gemma sent me the reply, and it was a YouTube comment, right. And it was something like, I don't know why Fujifilm have an ambassador like you. Look at your teeth, you're ugly, blah, 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 blah. And Gemma said, his teeth may not be perfect, but he's in Tokyo doing a presentation for Fujifilm and helping them design cameras. And you, my friend, are just a cunt.
She said that? Yeah. You're Gemma? God, dear.
So just take it with a pinch of salt, but just be prepared. The more you start pushing content out, the more you will get of that. That's all, and be prepared for it.
I tell you what, or you could. I think perhaps Gemma's got a thriving business in this. She could be the, if you've got somebody you need to answer to, hire Gemma. She'll send back a short, succinct, to the point message. All sorted. But I mean, on the flip side of what Morris has experienced, and that's dreadful. I'm sorry you've experienced it, Morris. But on the flip side of that, people do use clickbait and titling, and you can see those that are trying to build their accounts on whatever platform really by making grand statements. I gave up this. That's useless. That's rubbish. Why I don't believe that works. They use it, and of course, then they wear their, then they get behind a big wall, wait for the return of fire, and they don't care. They don't care because they've made their point. They've gone in, made their film, dumped it down. They know that it's going to challenge most people, and then they watch the numbers rise.
Yeah, of course, and they've all done it, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it, and generally that's. When I see titles like that, I just hit the unsubscribe button. I have to say, it's the ones that are like they just title it. I made a mistake.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I made what the hell does that mean? I made a mistake. So you then have to watch it. I don't watch it. I just unsubscribe straight away. But people watch it, and then the mistake is totally irrelevant, or why I no longer use Fujifilm cameras or something like that, and then it's like actually I'm using Sony now, and then the whole thing's about why he's using Sony rather than why he's not using Fujifilm, and it's like, who cares? It's fine, I get it. They're making money out of it, and that's fine. Everything's a fair business model, but I hate all that.
There's no code, Kev. There's no code. I tell you what, one thing I did learn about underneath the ground, 500 feet, with one roll of Delta 3200, by the way, which nice. I'm yet to see what worked out of that. I didn't like. I was on the Todd in the group. There were 10 of us, and because I was interested to get some pictures of the shafts and the mines and some of the shadows and the weird things going on, I held back a bit. So I did find myself in some of the sort of shafts, not completely on my own because that would be ridiculous, but sort of further back than most people. And it would have been, I tell you what, would have been frightening being down there on your own. As some of them had to be at the end of the night just to tap the side of the rock to get the rocks down so that they didn't squash the people the next day. But in the, sorry, I've gone off kilter a bit there, but it was all about code in the mines. If you chopped a If you took a bit of slate from your individual area, then you sent it up on you marked it with your family name, sent it up on the trolley, it got taken out, and if anybody touched it or if anybody took it for their own, Kev, they'd be out straight away. There was no thieving at all. Everybody in the mines absolutely for each other, supported each other.
Yeah, absolutely, quite right, the way it should be.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that. I'm sorry, I've gone off. I've gone off on a tangent there. But
Well, it's the code of conduct, isn't
Code,
it? On the
code.
internet.
Code, yes. Right. Sorry, before we get too lost down that particular mine shaft, yours, Kev. Was it yours or mine? I can't remember.
I
Yours.
think mine.
Yeah, yours.
Okay, so this is from Kirk Vogel.
Yeah.
And he says this might just be a question for the over 50s.
What?
So I can't answer this, of course. You'll have to answer this one, Neil.
You cheeky old. Go on.
How common are photographers' back problems? I never had any problems at all until my late 40s and can only put it down to carrying heavy bags with too much equipment for far too long. A misstep carrying too much was the start of it all, herniated disc, and wondered how many others may be in the same boat.
Not nice at all.
Or mine.
Well, I've been reasonably lucky, and I'm touching wood as I say this, because it only takes one sort of stupid movement, doesn't it? You've suffered a bit. You've suffered quite a lot with your more than me, Kev, and you're a good deal younger than me, Kev. Well, yeah,
I realised that as I was reading it that
Yeah.
this was going to backfire. I have had some back problems, but definitely not to do with cameras. More to do with stupidity on judo mats and trying to run too far on treadmills and things. So I tend to get like a trapped nerve in my leg, which goes up in my back a bit. But yeah, so
stretching exercises, Kev.
Yeah, that's right. I don't bother with them. That's the problem.
Okay.
Boy, you're not going to lose weight by stretching, are you? What's the
Well,
point?
it's not.
Like silent letters, pointless.
No, but it means that you can move, Kev, which you then may be able to use to successfully lose weight.
I know, my PT
If that's what
instructor
you
is
needed
forever
to do.
telling me that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, come on,
movement.
let's do another 5K. He's
Movement,
like, no, we
Kev.
need to do some stretching. No, I'm not paying you to stretch me, I'm paying you to make me lose weight.
Well, yeah.
And then I get a bad back.
I can't say that. I mean, I do stretch quite a lot, and I always stretch if I can find a place where I can do it, where I'm not going to look weird to the wedding guests. My God, what is that guy doing? Do some stretches during the mealtime, because that's when I usually feel really tired in my body.
The best stretch when the whippet stretches, it looks amazing, and I can feel every sinew in her body getting stretched, and it's amazing. Honestly, she elongates about 5 times her body length.
Yeah, it's amazing. Don't you? Well, you should try and do that, Kev. Why didn't you do that?
I could try and do that, yeah. And then I'll just collapse in a heap on the floor next to her. If I try and stretch like Breezy stretches, what usually happens when Breezy starts stretching is Monty, the stinker, he realises that she's in mid-stretch, and so she can't. She's stuck, basically. So he takes that opportunity to go and sniff a bum and lick her lips and all that kind of stuff. He has a good old go around her.
Oh, Kev. Good old
So I'm not stretching in my living room in case Monty comes and starts licking my face.
Yeah. Right, well, yeah.
But yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's a really good question, because I do know lots of people, I won't say lots, but some people who have purposely moved away from heavier cameras to, not necessarily just Fujifilm, just generally smaller cameras, because of the, the strain on their back. I mean, I have to say that I always, as soon as I started shooting weddings, I never really had an issue with I never carried my bag, for example.
No.
Like never. I just.
Put it down.
These days I don't even take the bag into the wedding venue. It stays in the car generally. I just take the 2 cameras I need.
Yeah.
But I'm never lugging. I don't. I put my bag under a table, or I put it in the in the kitchen or whatever, somewhere safe. And I'm never moving it and never carrying it around anywhere. And I don't. You've seen the stuff. I don't take much to weddings these days. I'm just not lugging stuff.
If you do lug heavier cameras, because not everybody uses light cameras, and of course you can put heavy lens on a light camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
The advice that I was always given was never wear a heavy camera on your hip. That has to be the lightest thing you can possibly put. Should be on. So we both use Spider, don't we?
Yeah.
As a system, so the lightest camera goes on your hip. If you are carrying something with a longer length, something like a 50 to 140, I think would be the perfect example here. That goes slung over your shoulder with a simple strap that goes over your shoulder. Now, this is the advice I got from an editorial photographer who had been having back problems. I'm trying to remember his name, and I can't, but he gave some strong advice from a physio who was talking about the way that you shoulder weight. And he said one of the most difficult straps, I'm being very careful here, one of the most difficult straps he'd come across is where people have that crossover leather strap. It doesn't have to be leather, where you are essentially carrying a weight on each hip, each side, which is slung, but the way that it's slung, in particular the ones where you screw in just one nut into the bottom of the camera, means that you walk in a slightly odd fashion because you're stopping the camera swinging, which is really not very good for your core because you're not moving with any freedom.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you look cool.
You do look cool. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What price cool, hey Kev?
Indeed.
What price?
Indeed.
Cool? Right. Talking of cool, the coolest thing I ever heard, although oddly we're not playing it back in this particular interview, was when Kev went to meet the late James Ravilious' wife, Robin, who brought out a cake, and we had about, I don't know, it must have been almost a minute of you unwrapping this cake.
Well, she'd left the room and I left the recorders on. And she'd made the cake, but it was well and truly wrapped up.
I know.
It was such a lovely day.
Well, you had an opportunity to talk with Robin Ravilious about a photographer that I know you admire very, very much.
Well, his dad was a watercolourist and wood engraver. Mm-hmm. We've got some of those little ones over there, for instance.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he was also a official war artist. Mm-hmm. And he died in Iceland on active service. His plane was shot down and nobody knows what happened. So James was 3 when that happened. Then his mother got cancer when he was about 10 and died when he was 11. Mm. So he was sort of in the wilderness really for quite a long time, and because he was good at maths, it was suggested he should train as a chartered accountant, which was probably the most unsuitable job possible. And he absolutely hated that. And then suddenly he just threw it all over and went to St Martin's School of Art to do art. But he was sort of trying different styles and not happy with it. He always felt his father's work was overshadowing him. You know, anything he did, he would think, "Oh, that's too like Eric." So he hadn't found his place really. And then in 1969, it was a really seminal year for him. He saw the first Cartier-Bresson exhibition in V&A, big retrospective, and that hugely impressed him. Mm-hmm. He'd not seen photography as an art before, I think, only as a tool.
Had he been photographing at that time, or was he still?
No, not mostly? Well. He'd taken snaps on holiday, but that was all. He had a camera, but he hadn't thought of it at all in terms of composition and as an art, really. So he was hugely excited by that and got a better camera. And then we met that same year, a couple of months later. And then he got cancer for the first time. So, his life was all sort of turned upside down. And by the time he'd recovered, we were going to be kicked out of our London flat because it was being redeveloped. Now, I come from this part of the world.
Oh, okay, so that's...
My family lived in the village Dalton, where we used to live, actually for 300 years.
Wow.
So it was my childhood home and still the place I love most in the world. Mm-hmm. So I brought him here. And my grandfather had given me a little cottage, tiny, tiny little cottage. And when we were kicked out of London and couldn't afford anywhere else, James said, well, let's go and live there. So we did.
And when was this?
This was, we came in 72.
Okay.
But he had no job. Mm-hmm. He hoped to find teaching, art teaching. And he went to the next door arts centre, the Beeford Centre, which had been started up by Dartington Trust, and hoping that they would give him some art teaching. But instead, the founder, John Lane, offered him some photography work. John had this idea of the Beeford Archive as a means of recording this particular world, really, which was then even more old-fashioned than it is now. And John really sort of appreciated how much it was sort of enshrining British country traditions, really. but obviously was going to change rapidly very soon, so he wanted it recorded. And he'd had a photographer doing it, actually Roger Deakin, you know, the cinematographer. He'd done a couple of years, but he'd just gone. And so John offered it to James. James had absolutely no training in photography at all. John didn't seem to think that mattered. And so off he went. And he did it for 17 years. Madly, obsessively.
Yeah, and beautifully.
Dawn till dusk.
Well, as a kind of side, you mentioned he went to the Bresson exhibition, and that was kind of his galvanising moment. Well, for me, it was seeing the film about James on, I think it was BBC 4 or something like that. He had such an affection for the area and the people within it. Which I didn't know, but you're the person who was from this area.
Yes.
So how did the locals, how did the farming community, how did they react to him initially and ongoing?
Well, you see, I was able to give him a sort of entree because he started with the people that I'd known from childhood. So they sort of welcomed him as part of the family in a way. So it's spread out from there, I would say. But it was also James as a person. He was just incredibly good at chatting people up. You know, he'd accost a farmer doing something in the field, and an hour later they'd be friends.
Great.
That's just how he was.
And he would literally get up in the morning, first light, and off he would go, and just come back at dusk.
Yeah.
With rolls of films.
Yeah. that was one of his ways. He would look out for things. You know, we'd read the local papers if there was a fair or a sports day or something. He'd follow it up. And as he began to do the work, people got to know he was doing it, and would ring him up and say, "We're about to start lambing, or we're making cider with an old press," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But mostly he just set out and hope to find something.
I asked somebody a couple of weeks ago to a few photographers. I said to them, "Right, I'm going to see Robin. Give me one word that describes James." Now, these people all know James' work, but I've never obviously met him. And one word that came up quite often was quiet. I think from the way that he tells his stories are beautifully quiet. They don't need any narrative because all of the narrative is in the picture.
Yes, it's quite a good word.
And I wonder if was he like that in real life?
No, he was a talker. I don't mean that he was sort of loud and rebelliant, but he was definitely a talker. He talked all the time, but he talked to anybody he met.
Yeah.
And he certainly talked to his subjects while he was taking, and that's why those pictures are so relaxed, because he was chatting away, taking an interest, and they didn't actually know when he was taking the picture, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because the Leica is very, very quiet.
Did they, request to see the prints, and did they come and have a look at them, and did he give prints to people?
He sometimes gave prints to people. He couldn't really give it to everybody.
No, of course.
But he'd go back and show them what he'd taken. And he always invited them to exhibitions. When we had book launches, we invited the people in the books, and they came.
You mentioned that some of these, the characters, some of the subjects are still around. Do you see them? Do you chat to them? Do you ever visit them?
Yes. From time to time, certainly. I keep up with several of them.
So you mentioned his cameras were Leicas?
Yes. Well,
Always?
to begin with, the archive was done on a Leica. But he went into plate cameras later on as well.
Okay.
But not for the archive.
No, okay.
I can show you the Leica if you want to see.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, absolutely.
It's worth seeing because it's very idiosyncratic. This is an M3. And he started out with what were then modern lenses.
Wonderful.
And then these are the strange modifications he did.
Yes, I read about this. So he was modifying the lights, the shades themselves, and
so as to be able to do contre-show work. Unfortunately, they've got wrinkled with age, so they look ridiculous. But of course, they were quite sharp. So these are the old lenses, pre-war, that he came back to begin with. He was using modern lenses, some actors and things, and they were coated and much too harsh a contrast, he felt. So after a lot of research, he found pre-war ones that weren't. So that's Elmars and Hectors. But the other thing that he was auxiliary viewfinder. Are you familiar with the View?
No.
Strange little gizmo.
Oh, okay, so he would put that on the top.
And that slots on. And it gives you... Well, for one thing, it's a much clearer image, I gather, because it doesn't have all the lines and things on it.
Yeah.
But it also gives you... people say it's like an artist standing back from his easel. It gives you an idea of the picture more as a whole.
Yeah,
which obviously helped him with his composition.
Absolutely. It's an amazing thing that he did. Of course, there has to be economical rewards as well, but just in terms of the posterity of the area, I think it's amazing. Make pictures like that.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's the depth of coverage, I think, that makes it quite unique. Because obviously there have been other documentary projects in rural areas, but not 17-year long run.
Yeah.
And also he did this other thing of copying old photos. I don't know if you knew about that. When he was out and about, he discovered that people had these boxes of old photos, from the 1900s.
Okay.
Of the same places.
Wow.
And the same people in some cases. And he added that as a second string. He borrowed them and copied them. Didn't keep them, he just copied them.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So the comparisons are absolutely fascinating.
When you look at the clothes and everything that they're wearing, you get some real idea of the life they live, hard-working lives.
And very physical. I mean, no forklift trucks. If you had to... And no Burberrys to keep the rain out.
No,
old leather boots, lace-up leather boots.
He's got some kind of Hessian sack wrapped around him.
Yeah, well, that was what people wore.
Yeah.
It was actually quite effective to keep the rain off.
But from a very personal point of view, I would love so many more people to see this type of work, and I know that lots of people do see it. In the modern photography world, people tend not to see past Photoshop and computers and technology.
Yes.
And whilst it's a million miles away, one of the things I do with my photography is that it's all unposed, it's real, they're real moments, and that's the end of it. That's what I enjoy shooting. And it seems, sadly, that more and more people are, relying on technology and posing and computer filters, etc. And I really, really, really love this work and really want more people to...
It's this whole thing about honesty, isn't it? You see, that's really why I think he wouldn't have liked digital, because a digital image can be doctored in any way you please.
Absolutely.
And other bits of another picture imported, and it would have been absolutely against his principles.
Yeah, but it's about integrity, isn't it? I mean, that's
yes.
The integrity in these pictures is just, integrity and humanity.
Yeah. And those are the two words I would use to describe him.
Absolutely.
More than quiet. I mean, I think quiet is right, but I think those two words sort of sum him up, really.
Thanks to Robin Ravilious, and of course over the summer months, we don't really have summer months these days, do we, Kevin? Shocking summer day. The
summer was a week last Tuesday.
Oh God. We've been playing back some of our well, I was going to say faves again, but some of those moments that we've really enjoyed, and certainly when you went to meet Robin, that was one of them, wasn't it? Hey?
Yeah. Beautiful woman.
Yes, and actually, I don't think a lot of people realise just how much time she spent with James, going to everything, didn't she? She was a real support structure for him, his artistry, and of course when he had his illnesses as well.
Absolutely.
So, wonderful. Oh, but we didn't mention right at the start, Book of the Week. It's not so much a book this week, though, is it? We'll come to it shortly, but it's a kind of a zine of the week. Although you don't like the word zine usually.
I hate the word zine. Yeah. No, I would actually. I'm going back on that. I would call this a book. It's not a zine. It's it's got a spine. That's how I define a book. Right. Yeah. So this week we've been sent a lovely book from the United States of America. Chris Ferreira.
Rocher, the ambassador's treat.
I don't know. Ferreira. How would you say that?
Ferreira.
Okay, Chris Ferreira. Howdy, Neale and Kevin. My homing pigeon must have successfully delivered this envelope if you are reading this.
Yes.
And it did.
Yeah.
Came straight to my door.
Yeah.
Isolating at home in the age of COVID has made me go through my archive on old journals.
Right.
I stumbled upon this journey I took a few years back when I travelled 1,000 kilometres through the Philippines countryside with just a humble point and shoot and my notebook. I scanned my journal with sketches and personal chronicles, combined images from the trip, and thought it made an interesting project. I would love to hear what your thoughts on this zine. He did call it a zine.
So he called it a zine, okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to scrap that out. I'm going to say it's a book because it's got a spine. Right. Is there a place in the photo world for documentary work that combines paper notes, or does this belong in the world of fine art? Many thanks to you both. Keep up the great work and stay safe.
Well, we'll come to Chris Ferreira's work shortly then for the book of the week. Right, couple of questions before then. Kev, do you want to go first, or is it my turn? Can't remember. Where were we?
It's your turn. I did the bad back.
What the dear listener doesn't know is that in the meantime, we had a power cut at your end, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think the hairdressers plugged everything in next door, and then it went...
Yeah, everything went off.
It was like a meltdown. What should we have? Okay, Per Hasling. Hi Neale, Kevin. Having spent a lifetime in teaching, coming up to retirement, and nearly as long as an amateur photographer, I want to take my skills back into the community, possibly night school, to talk about photography, not just as an art form or pastime, but as something that's creatively energising. I suppose it might be mentally energising there as well. One thought is to take students out on field trips to experience being in the wilds, possibly the streets, with a camera. Any advice from you? Sincerely, Peter. Wow. You take people around the streets of Bath and all sorts of places on the street photography course. Recently I saw a field trip. I was on one of my photo walks for the Photography Daily show, and I saw this must be going back a couple of months now. But I saw a whole team of people out behind a school teacher, sort of making pictures of anything that moved, and that was really good to see, because everybody seemed, I'm going to use his word now, really energised and really into it. It was fantastic. And they were using everything from smartphones. A couple of people had mirrorless. Did see a Fuji X100. I don't know what particular flavour of X100 it was, but that was good to see.
That was the posh kid.
Yeah, that was the one, yeah. Tarquin's got the X100. So what would you suggest? I mean, you keep your numbers low. I was going to say short, but no, I mean low, because it's difficult. I mean, I did think that this teacher, I mean, he must have had 15. That's a very difficult number to really concentrate on if people have questions and want advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for schools, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they have to take all the kids. But
course,
yeah, I mean, I never have more than 6 on my street photography workshops. I just don't think any more than that is workable, and people don't get enough out of it. So I did once do a term at my kids' school, a term of photography for the kids that were interested, of which there was about 15 actually. And I started that process by basically asking them all to write down on a piece of paper 5 things, because it had to be in the school grounds, 5 things in the school that they liked the best. Physical things, didn't not like geography or something, and that formed the nucleus of what we would photograph. So some of them said like the computers, some of them were like the canteen, some of them were like Mrs. Stephenson. I was like, no, we can't really go and just photograph Mrs. Stephenson, that's just weird. Things like that, playground, all that kind of stuff. So we based our plans around things that excited them, and then that's a little bit like I think that's a good starting point, because then they're already interested in the subject, and then you're trying to I was trying to encourage them to explain why they enjoyed this particular thing, but through pictures, which was quite challenging to them, but interesting to see what they did.
How engaged were they, Kev?
Yeah, they were good. They enjoyed it. They did. They'd signed up for it. Remember, this was like a after school club type thing. Right. So they weren't forced into it. They these kids it was either that or chess club, of which I was doing chess club as well, so I was a bit but they enjoyed it. And so that's what I would do, start with something like that. I think for adults and everything, and like if it's a workshop, it's different, because a workshop is more about education, right? It should be about education, shouldn't like street photography workshops where it's a glorified tour of London is or whatever is something different. That should just be called a photography walk, which is fine to charge for, but it's it's a different thing. Workshop should be about education, and start with that in mind. Start thinking, okay, if it's just to get people interested in photography, you can't say to them, right, take a picture of light and shade or whatever. Start with, what are you interested in now? What excites you, even where you're stood? When you look around on the spot you're stood, what captures your eye? What would you stare at if you fell into a daydream right now? And start with that process.
Mrs. Stephenson, probably.
Mrs. Stephenson, yeah. Yeah.
I've been looking, as you well know, at organising a retreat at the moment, a photographic retreat. Now, whilst I was down in the mines photographing on the Delta 3200, thinking, where's the light? It did occur to me one really, and one of the things I loved about the night school course that I went on, and I didn't think in those initial days this was going to be, well, I knew it was going to be important because of the time I was doing photography, but it's printing. And I did think if I could get a mobile darkroom set up or something to actually take some film cameras out and do some printing from stuff that we've made, because I think it is about experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and printing is important. I'm doing a set of workshops for Fujifilm in the autumn. Yeah. Where we'll go out with it's GFX workshop, so we'll go out on the streets and we will be sending the pictures via Wi-Fi back to the House of Photography, and they will print them ready for us on our return.
Nice.
So yeah, that kind of tangible thing is. It's hard to get excited about digital photography if you don't have the means to experience the results properly. So, and by that I mean, you need to have a monitor or a tablet or something. If you're just looking at the pictures on the back of the camera where most of them stay, then it's not as excitable. So, and of course the utopia is printing. Yeah.
Right, one more question, then we'll go for Book of the Week. From Facebook, Kev, all over to you.
So this is from Alexander Torset Eriksson, and he did actually post this twice. So he posted it in the questions thread, which is fine, and he also posted it separately, and there's quite a few comments. So I thought it was an interesting one. And he said, I wonder when camera manufacturers, in brackets Fujifilm and Sony, in his case, are going to catch up with apps and cell phone manufacturers when it comes to smarter camera functions. I also wish my camera had built-in frame averaging with option to save JPEG plus RAW and HDR, panorama as RAW, etc. I think camera manufacturers need to learn from app and cell phone makers and start implementing smarter functions in the future to not lose more market share like they have been doing for the last 4 or 5 years.
We've talked about this quite a lot, haven't we? The sort of the coming to the melding, the coming together of the two.
It's interesting because Andreas, who of course will be on the show in a few weeks, replied to that comment, and it was quite an interesting reply. And it was basically, cameras will always be cameras. If you think about a phone, the thing you don't think about when you buy a phone is how good a phone it is, right? You don't, like, the phone part of it is generic. What you're thinking about now is, how fast is the internet on there? How big is the screen so I can watch Netflix? How what the camera is like in the phone, all of that kind of stuff. And so the phone manufacturers know that, and that's why they have spent billions and billions and billions on squeezing as much stuff into their phones as possible. But they're still phones, but you're not using it as a phone as such anymore. It's more than that. It's a smart device. And so Andreas's point was, Apple have got more cash in the bank than a vast majority of third world countries. They could wipe out the debt of a lot of third world countries just by their cash in the bank. And so they have that money. They have that. And probably Sony, he was saying, have got more opportunity in that respect because obviously Sony make phones. So there could be a little bit of cross processing going on there, but Fujifilm certainly not. They just do not have that experience. They don't have that R&D. They do not have that kind of money in that area. So they concentrate. They will concentrate on the photographic experience rather than squeezing stuff into the system that very few people will use. I mean, of course, nobody's going to complain if somebody released a camera that did everything that a mobile phone did. But then actually, I think it was Panasonic, or might have been Olympus, who did one. They produced, it was basically a mobile phone with a camera on the back, had an Android system. You could have Lightroom on there and all sorts stuck on the back of the camera. Nobody bought it. Just like it's seen as a gimmick. So, yeah, I mean, phones are phones, cameras are cameras.
I wonder where,
apples are apples, pears are pears.
Would you use your X100 as a phone if the opportunity was there and leave your phone behind? No, Kev, because it'd have some sort of control where you speak to a little microphone on your on your T-shirt or something, or you can do what Sam started doing, which is talking to her watch. That does look strange.
That does, yeah. My watch does that.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
And it sometimes takes me by surprise, and I'm like, "Where's it coming? Where's that voice? Where's that noise coming from?" And it's coming from my wrist. But yeah, I don't do that either. No, I think I don't know. We're at that stage in technological evolution, aren't we? Where like I said, phones are no longer phones. They do phone, but they're no longer phones, and they're getting bigger and they're doing more things. But for me, you know what? I've still got my Huawei P10 or P20 or whatever it is. I've had it like 3 or 4 years now, and it's fine. But I've got no inclination to get the latest one because it's bigger, and I've even got a Huawei watch now. It's great, brilliant. I mean, honestly, they make good tech. What I have for my wedding clients on wedding day is I take a little burner phone. It's just got a SIM in it.
You've got burner phones, Kev. Does
a burner, yeah.
Does Gemma know about this? Gemma, he's got a burner phone. Did you know about it? I know. I'm surprised too.
So I give them that number, and it's just an old Nokia thing. You can buy them in WH Smith's for like £9. It doesn't do anything. You can play Worms on it or whatever that game was called. You can send text messages, but that's basically it. You can't watch videos or anything on it. And that's a phone. That is a phone. The Huawei thing is an all singing, all dancing smart device, and I use it. I need it, of course. I do my banking on there, all sorts of things. But I pick up a camera to take pictures.
There's talk, isn't there, about the camera, the smartphones that have the I don't know how they do this. It's very clever. The lenses that shift. I suppose a bit like a tilt shift in some respects. So you can have your camera at an angle and be taking a photograph fully forward. Which is really, that sounds like the spy's perfect camera, doesn't it, really? Because at the moment you have to lift it, you know when a picture's generally being taken, don't you? But now if you can have it 45 degrees like you're reading, or you're playing your chess games like you like, Mullins, but at the same time you're just taking a picture forward of Mrs. Stephenson, then that's tech, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Chinese type of tech, that, isn't it?
Well, no, I don't think we should probably
Chinese and Russians.
And those funny folk on the Isle of Wight, you've got to watch out for them. Right, before we get ourselves in trouble. It's not, well, it's a book of the week. We were going to almost went down the zine of the week, but it's a book of the week, isn't it?
Yeah, so Chris Ferreira has sent it in. Now, actually, thinking about it, I said he'd come from America, right? However, I might have got that completely wrong because his website is .dk domain, which is Denmark.
Yeah, I really love your research that you put into this stuff.
I know. I only just noticed that. However, so we will link to this, of course, on the show notes. Yes. But for those of you who can't see that, the website to get more information on this this story is frr.dk /journal-the-Philippines, and it's a really lovely book, actually. And lots of, as he said, he was going through the forests, if you like, and the countryside of the Philippines. And the main question that he said in his notes was, is there a place for books like this that are photographic sketches, doodles, all of that kind of stuff? And my unequivocal answer is yeah, absolutely, especially when it's really, really beautiful. I mean, nobody would want to see my doodles and stuff because I can't doodle, basically. I can't even draw a straight line.
Yeah, but you don't have to be skilled to be a doodler. You have to just have creative... well, you do have to be... Yes, that's not true entirely. But creative outlet through doodling. And that's
absolutely.
Move with the doodle, Kev.
Yeah, with the doodle, absolutely. But I think it helps if people are picking up a book to look at that, it looks reasonably like what you're trying to draw.
True. Yeah. That's true.
So yeah, I love it. So, for example, I'll read out this page 12. There's a sketch of a bus and trees and mountains and sky and all that, and I can see that. You see, because he's a good doodler. And so and he's as he mentioned, he'd also kind of typed up the notes that he'd drawn in his book, and so he's got that next to it on the page, and it says, after 4 hours, the driver tells me to get off the bus. It's a dirt lot in the countryside, and the sun is going down. I walked around, and a local Tito pointed me to the community. The community holds 20-some families, all living in homemade shacks. It has 8 bamboo benches, 4 tables, and a kitchen that holds 1 stove and a fridge. They all hang out here. I'm looking for the volcano, I said. Wait here, a young mother replied. It was pouring down, so they invited me under the shelter. We chatted and laughed while the young family cooked for the community. Throughout the night, I drew pictures with a little girl, joked with the Lola and sold drinks, took selfies with the lesbian couple, and learned about cockfighting from the bus driver. What an experience.
I'll tell you what.
The Tito who was waiting by the road came running. The bus is here. 3 hours had passed. The mother quickly gave me some homemade buns and a Sprite for the road. The Tito and the man who taught me cockfighting rushed me to the bus. So that's there with the sketches, and then there's photos that go with that, all black and white, really, really nice. In his notes he said he was using a point and shoot, although he doesn't say which camera. It does not matter at all, but the images are really well edited, beautiful kind of saturation to them, and actually really telling my story. And I think, to answer Chris's point about the sketches and the notes, it helps. It really helps, because actually when I read the notes and then I look at the pictures, I can almost imagine him being there, rather than it being some more of a voyeuristic point of view. I can understand kind of thought processes and stuff. So I think it's really beautiful, and the pictures are stunning. There's a lot of kind of close-up details of people like cooking fish and all that kind of stuff. But then there's some very creative angles, especially journey shots. There's kind of pictures of, I'm looking at one here on page 44 of somebody who's sat in a chair in the street, and we just see the feet and legs, but with a lot of open space in the frame, which is really pleasing, really nice to see. There's some wonderful landscape ones at the end, and then obviously the volcano stuff. And then the very last page has a lovely quote from Helen Keller. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
No way in between.
No. So the book is called To the Mayon Volcano and Beyond. Christopher Ferreira. Yeah. So thanks for that, Chris. Really appreciate it. And we will, of course, link to everything in the show notes.
On that the page you're going to link to, yes, you can clearly see that he's an expert doodler, Kev.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you can see the pictures there as well.
Yeah, and you get a flavour of what that book's going to be about.
I'd love to be able to draw. Gemma's a really good artist.
She is, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to draw. Really would.
I tell you, this particular project of his, this is the kind of thing that can you imagine having all the time in the world to think, right, I'm going to make a book, self-published book, and just to let your creativity go absolutely wild, because it's what he's done. The text next to the pictures, next to the detail, next to the vistas, next to a couple just sleeping on a station in front of being illuminated only by the Coke machine, next to his fantastic 3D drawings of probably the place where he was staying that night. Oh, it's just lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Travel. That's travel story making. That really is travel story making.
And it opens up with like this sketched map of the routes as well. It reminded me of the what's that thing with the little hairy bloke in it?
Mullins on Tour. The series,
Lord of the Rings, Hobbit. The book starts with a map of Mordor, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful book. Oh, well, I'm signing up. I'm going to get one myself, unless I come and steal yours, of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was sent to both of us.
Was it?
And he did send us a couple of prints as well, so I'll make sure that you get one of the prints. I'll keep the book.
Right, you keep the book. I'll swap you for a 35mm lens. No, he says, I'll have the book. Another question. Was it you or me? I've quite forgotten where we are now. Yes. All right, here we go. To Kevin Neale, a quick question about food. Oh, one of our favourite subjects, Kev.
I'm good at this. Yeah, I'll be good at this. What's the question?
Start of a one. It's food at weddings. I've started my business in the last few years. Needless to say, it's been an unusual start. This is from Mike Elan. What do you both do when it comes to being fed by clients? Do you contract it in? Do you demand a hot meal or settle for sandwiches? Some clients seem surprised that I even ask. Regards, Mike Elan. Keep up the good work. Well, I have to say, I took food off the contract quite some time back. And I now say, it's up to you. And I kind of wait to see what kind of people they are, whether they'll say you can't work all day without being fed. But yeah, and generally it works out quite well that they offer me a plate of food. I've stopped taking sandwiches now, because sandwiches, I don't know about you, Kev, but if you have a great big plate of sandwiches and say, would you like some crisps? Oh, not really. And then and you just feel like stodged out for the rest of the gig, don't you? Really, you can't work like that. So I generally. When I was really organised, I must get back to this, it was rice and chicken in a bowl, Tupperware thing. But that gets, there's some venues I work at that won't let you eat food that's not been prepared by the venue, whether it's sandwiches or main meal, on site. So I have to actually go physically off site. I drive out of site slightly, eat my meal, come back in again.
That's petulance, isn't it?
Petulance?
Yeah, by the venue, especially if you're right. Working. Yeah, for me, similar really. I don't demand food. I normally what happens is Gemma says to me in the morning, make sure you stop and get yourself some food. I don't want an email. I don't want a message from you at 7:00 saying I haven't had anything to eat. I'm knackered. And then usually I don't get anything. And
has
so
she stopped listening to
those?
7:00? Is she stopped listening to those?
Yeah. So yeah, I have to say I can't remember the last time I shot a wedding where they didn't organise a meal for me. But yeah, I don't insist on it.
It's not in your contract then?
No, and of course I'm vegetarian, so often they'll give me the chicken dinner or something, and I'll just eat around the chicken. But yeah, I mean, I just we are at the end of the day we're working there. We're not we shouldn't be expecting a 3-course meal.
No.
Although in some cases that's what they do give you. Sometimes you do get the 3 courses that the guests are having, which is lovely. You do need to eat though, because especially if it's a long day.
Yeah,
you really do. But more important than that is water. Drink lots of water. I have no hesitation in going up to the bar or the drinks reception people and saying, have you got any water, please?
Yeah.
I remember once downing a whole pint of. I was really, really thirsty. They'd just gone in for their meal, and there was this big jug on the bar. And I said to the guy behind the bar, "Oh, can I have a glass of this? I'm really thirsty." He said, "Yeah, help yourself." So I poured a pint of it. Yeah. I gulped down. I got halfway down, and I thought, this doesn't taste quite right. I said, "What is this?" He said, "It's gin."
You didn't notice while you were quaffing all that gin?
I got halfway down. Luckily, it was early in the day. I was like, oh my God, I got to drive home in 8 hours.
Can you imagine that? Calling, ladies and gentlemen, time for the big group shot. I don't normally do these, but I might be fun today. Oh, Kev. Oh, dear. What do you feel, though, when people, just very quickly, before we do the back announcement bits for the show today, what do you feel, though, when you see when you look at the table plan and you see your name on one of the tables, Kev?
Oh, yeah, that's happened a few times.
Yeah, what do you do, Kev? What do you do?
Well, a couple of times I've sat there and kind of gone through it, but mostly I will go up to the best man or something and say, look, it's really kind of them. I really appreciate it, but I have to back up my cameras, charge batteries and stuff. Is much easier if I go to a side room.
Yeah, and I have to send a miserable message to my wife as well to say, no, not feeding me. I can't be doing that. But yeah, that does sometimes happen. That's a very awkward moment, because you'll always face, what's the first question you get? How many pictures do you think you'll take today?
Yeah, you must have taken loads today.
Yeah, I know. What do you say, Kev? What's your answer?
I don't know. I just say, one time I said, well, not that many, because my cameras are broke.
The other answer I give is 4.5 gallons, and then watch them try and work out whether that's a real thing or not. Right, that's it for this week. If you can share the episode on Twitter, please do. It makes a lot of difference to us. If you can share on social like Facebook as well. Thank you to those that have sent questions in. As we said, we need topping up, particularly during the summer. Well, Kev with his gin, clearly. So send them in to the FujiCast. Well, you can either send them in via the FujiCast Facebook page. There's a special post for that. Or send them to click@fujicast.co.uk. Now, this is a bit unusual, Kev, because we're recording on the Friday. The big do is tomorrow. This goes out on Monday. But particularly from us and the family here, good luck for tomorrow. Congratulations in advance for what I'm sure will be a wonderful, wonderful day. And I'll do it on behalf of everybody who's listening to the FujiCast as well. Happy wedding day, Kev.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a goodie. Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.